Okie doke. Is everybody ready? All right. It's 6:30, and I call this meeting to order, November 14th. Do we have Commissioner May participating by video teleconference?
Yes, we do. We have him here. He can hear us.
Okay. We just can't see him. Well, is he, because we're going to go into a closed session shortly, so. Anyway, hi, Tim. All right, Tim May is participating via video teleconference from Honolulu, Hawaii. I know. Welcome. Anyway, we've been called to order, and are there announcements anybody would like to make? I would like to thank the Commission, Director Lear, and library staff, as well as the residents and voters of Sonoma County for the enthusiastic passage of Measure Y. I think we're all very happy about that. Any other announcements before we move on to public appearances? Okay, at this time we invite members of the public who wish to address the Commission regarding items that are not on the agenda. Please step up to the microphone down here and proceed.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, congratulations. Measure Y passed. A ray of bright light in a dark and gloomy night. But anyway, we're getting elevated. Thank you. My name is Jake McKenzie. I'm the Vice Mayor of the City of Rohnert Park, and I'm appearing in front of you in that capacity. I anticipate that in the coming year, I will be the Mayor of Rohnert Park and chairing the Mayors and Council Members Association. The reason I mention that is that the current configuration of the Commission and the JPA started off at a meeting that we were having in Sebastopol, California, where members of the public came in front of us and were talking to us about the reduction in library hours and the construct of the past Commission. And so it's very important to us in the 9 cities of Sonoma County that, in fact, this measure just passed. I know you're going to be deliberating on how to move forward, and we'll certainly look forward at some point in time in the next calendar year to possibly having a report to the mayors and council members when we meet. We meet quarterly at various locations, and as the incoming chair of the mayors and council members, I would invite you to consider a presentation to us on how you're planning to move forward, because it affects all of us. The libraries, as you know, and as we all were saying in the campaign, are community centers. They're extremely important in the life of each of our communities. You all know that. You're commissioners. That's your job to know these things. And we're well aware of that and looking forward to a very successful implementation of Measure Y. And thank everybody for all the hard work that went into it. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
And thank you very much. Any other members of the public wishing to speak, please come on down and talk to us.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Irv Sutley. I'm the longest serving member of a political party in California. I've never taken a religious oath when I was 5 years, when I was in fifth grade. Congress changed the Pledge of Allegiance and inserted a deity in it. I won that case based on the rights of Jehovah's Witnesses, not to say the pledge. I'm an atheist, but I used them as case law. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 8 years. I beat the mandatory church services that were required at that time in 1962 for mandatory church attendance. So I take separation of church and state very seriously, and I think there's been a violation within the library system, and I've been working with over at the main library and just read some of the correspondence. But several years ago in Coddingtown, they put on a religious song fest during normal library hours. It was very offensive. It was put on under the guise of entertaining some of the children, but it's inappropriate, not only under the First Amendment to the federal Constitution, but to several provisions of California's Constitution. Article 16, Section 5 of California Constitution says nothing of value shall be given to religious purposes. That includes time, space, and we had more violations at Rincon Valley, where the head librarian there, Mr. Ann, put up signs with sayings from Confucius. I approached her about it, said that it was improper. Confucianism is a state religion in some places and a practicing religion in others. She then got back to me and said she was removing it, but only because her scholarship was wrong, and that she said that the reference quote from Confucius was inaccurate. But then, several weeks ago, I went to the Rincon Valley Library, and she had set up an altar, labeled a community altar. Altar is a definition, by definition, is a religious term. And it was to celebrate the Day of the Dead, which is, she claims, a cultural heritage, but there were Christian symbols on this altar. I complained about those. She removed it, but did not remove the altar. I think we have to be very careful. People have the right to celebrate their religion, but they do that in their homes, in their churches. But the government entities, such as a public library, cannot be sponsoring certain events with religious overtones. And the Day of the Dead certainly has it. In Mesoamerican terms, it's a reflection of the resurrection, life after death, and it's within the framework of the Catholic Church. I hope you'll take some of this seriously. It's very offensive to go to a tax-supported institution and be bombarded with this kind of religious things. For instance, Duran told me that this was a great cultural turnout, and they had a meeting there about Day of the Dead, and it was primarily rich white people who were coming there in a cultural appropriation. It was not members of the Latino community who were there to celebrate it. I think that religion and comparative religion belongs on the bookshelves, but it certainly is not something that a public library should be sponsoring. So thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? All right. At this time, we are going to be going into closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6 to discuss labor relations and salary schedule. Open session will begin no earlier than 7 p.m. So thanks. We'll be back. All right, we will call this meeting back in session, open session, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.1, report on closed session where we discuss labor relations and salary schedule. We gave some direction to Director Lear and CFO Ken Nyman, and have nothing else to report. So at this time, are there any members, this is item 6, Library Advisory Boards and Friends of the Library reports. I see none. So we will move on to item 7. Do we have Commissioner Tim May back with us?
We do.
So item 7.1, Commissioner reports. And I'd like to offer Tim May the opportunity to give a report if he has one.
Is that me?
That's you.
Okay, our last met and discussed this issue. We're working on trying to organize our lab minutes and perhaps get them digitized. Just as also an aside, I visited a library on the Big Island, and I was really intrigued to see that they were using Mango to teach Hawaiian. So libraries are active everywhere.
Great. All right. Aloha.
Aloha. I would echo the thanks to everybody who helped make Y pass. I know that a lot of work, effort, and went into it, and it happened.
Yay. Yes. All right. So if we'll move on to Commissioner Heavenridge for a report.
Well, I had a good time not going to lab. No, we had. Thank you, Helena, for going to the Guerneville lab last week in my place. I was asked to be on a panel and to talk about the election, and I agreed to that before I realized when the lab meeting was. So thank you for taking over, and I guess you'll report on the
I will.
lab. Thank you.
Commissioner Foxton, do you have a report?
Well, I have something to show you that I am extremely proud of, because this is a partnership and an incredible example of collaboration. It's a do-it-yourself energy toolkit. And I think all of you read about it in your report and the stuff we had to read for tonight. But I just wanted you to see it in real life. Jane Elias from the Sustainability and Energy Division in Sonoma County. Is that important? Okay. Came to me and said, hey, you know, I just read something about down in Santa Clara County, them doing a checkout so people could find out about how the energy is working in their home. I said, oh, gee, that sounds like a good idea. So I went to Keo, and Keo said, gosh, that sounds like a good idea. And she passed it off to Jamie Anderson and Chris Labanish, I think is her last name. And they got together with Jane, and they pulled in the water agency with Carly, and I wrote her name down, Carrie. And they also got the Sonoma Clean Power involved. And between the 4 groups, they have created this for people to check out. And Keo, did you tell me how many are checked out? 5. 5? 6. Okay, well, this is one of them, because I did check this out from Central Library. Some of the stuff inside you can keep, and some of the stuff you have to return. One of the really great things is a manual that describes all this stuff and how it works in your home, etc., and how to read your electric bill. I mean, you know, I didn't know how to read the electric bill. It was way too long for me. But anyway, I just wanted you guys to see this and feel really proud that that kind of collaboration occurred and that it is now in the works. A pilot project was launched November 8th. They're going to run it for 6 months and see how it goes. They've got Central has some, Guerneville has some, and Sebastopol has some. So that's the start for it. And I'm just really happy with what the administration, the people in the library, and how they worked with everybody else to make this come true. So that's my report.
Yeah, thank you very much, Reese. We talked about those at the Guerneville Lab and saw it in person, and they have it displayed very nicely in Sebastopol, too, in a nice display case right out by the front door.
They did a really incredible display case for it. So
yeah. Great, thank you. So moving on to Commissioner Hauser.
Yes, we just had our meeting Thursday afternoon after the election, so there is a lot of interest from the Friends exactly how the sales tax money was going to be spent, how much there was going to be, and a blueprint of how it will be spent and how much of the budget it will be. So there's a lot of interest, and I think it would be good to get out to the public. We, as a body, need to figure out what's going on and get something out to the public to let them know about what their vote is going to do. I think that's something we really have to make sure we do. That's it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, thank you. I attended the lab meeting in Rohnert Park, Cotati on October 18th. It was pretty poorly attended. We didn't have any city reps, and not everybody was there. The item for the future seems to be looking for outreach opportunities. So I'm excited in terms of Measure Y to see what we can do, somehow meld these opportunities as well as the interest in the labs to do more. I monitored the Healthy Living class, which was at the Rohnert Park Cotati branch this Saturday on the November the 5th. It's pretty interesting, and it was one of the classes that Jamie Anderson got the grant for the Healthy Living. It was very interesting. I think they had about 15 people signed up. I am continuing to attend the Rohnert Park Chamber of Commerce monthly noontimes meetings, and the one right before the election, Paul Gullickson was one of the speakers, and I went up to him, thanked him for all the help he had given us with his very wonderful editorial on Measure Y, and then at the end of the presentation, he gave us another plug. So it was, kind of a nice sense of momentum there. I just wanted to point out that this is a group that has civic leaders, business leaders, education leaders. The Board of Education comes. I mean, it's just a really great opportunity to always be a liaison for the library. And I just encourage anybody else who might have that kind of opportunity to attend your chamber meetings in your city, because people kind of see me as a library connection, and it's a really broad spectrum of people that you can reach that way. Fourthly, I just wanted to say, just as a private citizen, having worked on both Measure M and Measure Y, it was kind of a labor of love. It was also a whole lot of work, and it took a whole lot of energy. And I want to thank Brett for his leadership. It did take going back the second time with this long-term plan to get it to happen. I want to thank all the volunteers who did whatever they could do to help make it happen. And I want to make a special shout out to the Friends of the Library all across the county who raise money, 50 cents and $1 at a time, selling used books, and they really only want to buy books and programs for their libraries. They don't really want to fund political campaigns. They stepped up. We didn't really have any big funders this time, and most of the big money came from the Friends. And I want to do an extra special shout out for obvious reasons to the Friends of the Parkatati Library, who stepped up both campaigns and gave significant chunk of money and really helped support this very worthwhile and successful this time campaign. Thank you very much.
Very much, Barbara. And now Commissioner Neff.
Saturday was the 20th anniversary of the Windsor Regional Library in its current building. The mayor came and spoke. Brett came and spoke. I spoke a little bit. And then we all had cookies and cupcakes and drinks. And there'll be a longer presentation on this later in the evening from the branch manager, Bill.
Great. And Commissioner Ebright?
The Santa Rosa Lab meets Wednesday night. And I think both commissioners will be there in attendance. And tomorrow, at the Rincon Valley branch, the Latino service providers are hosting their luncheon there. So I encourage you all to attend that tomorrow at the Rincon Valley branch. I think that starts at 11:30, noon, something like that. It's lunchtime. 11:30. So that's the Latino service providers, and we are hosting that luncheon at our library in Rincon Valley. That's what I have.
All right. Commissioner Grill?
Let's see. I'm meeting with the Friends to thank them and express our gratitude for what they did at the next meeting. Also, I wanted to say that we're having a book sale starting Wednesday, and thank you, Brett. It's going to go through Friday. But one of the things I think we all need to consider as commissioners, I think all of our major fundraiser book sales are getting compromised by various and sundry things, and they're in a general downward spiral. So that's something to think about. I read the book a few years ago called The Long Tail, and it was an economic model designed to talk about things that weren't normally in the top 10, how they got a new life and they sold it. And I'm just generally thinking about books. Thirdly, I would also like to do a shout out to Becky Goodsell, who was the former president of the Friends, and she worked in collaboration with Brett, and I don't know who else was on was it called the Executive Committee for the Measure Y, and she did a hell of a job and got a lot of spirit, she does. So I want to say thank you to her. And thirdly, we've lost a long-term employee, Cynthia Gallagher, who was a specialist, and we have a new specialist coming in, Heather Lewers. So there you go.
All right. And Commissioner Garcia?
Yes, the foundation, the Sonoma County Library Foundation meeting will be held on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and then, depending on when they get out of there, I will go to the lab meeting at 7 o'clock, which will be at the Central Library. In regards to the Latino service providers, Angelina has only been on staff for less than a month, and this is a huge collaborative effort. It is an organization that's been in existence for almost 30 years. Latino service providers, those organizations that serve Latinos, and their listserv is over 1,000 people. Now, we probably won't get more than 20, but it is an opportunity and an outreach effort that has taken a lot of time and energy to do. So hopefully those who can come, there'll be light refreshments, and the program is that someone will speak about the library system and the foundation. We're doing it in partnership with the Library Foundation. They're paying for the snacks, and they will get 15 minutes of fame too. And it is a time to hear what other organizations are doing in the area of Latino outreach. Thank you.
Great. Looking forward to that. So thank you very much. And I did have the pleasure of going to the Guerneville Lab last week, and we did have some champagne to celebrate Measure Y. It was provided by Peter Andrews. They are going to hold the Friends group is having its 11th annual Young Writers Awards ceremony on November 19th. And this is where they have $750 in prize money that they award to aspiring young writers in grades 6, 7, and 8 from 3 different schools, the Guerneville, the Monterio, and the Montgomery School in Casadero, I believe it is. They just had their Readers Theater casting call last Saturday. And so look for the Readers Theater programs. There will be the last Wednesdays in January, February, and March, and they usually have a good turnout, and it's very good entertainment, the plays that they read. They are having a book sale in December 7th through the 10th, and Bruce Robinson reported that they have had many people who are retiring and downsizing donate their entire, good portions of their collections. So there should be a lot of great books to be had at the sale. I would recommend you go on Friday if you want to get some great books. Sebastopol Lab doesn't meet until December, so I have nothing to report for them. But I did also want to, again, congratulate the library, but also I really want to give credit to Director Lear for the terrific groundwork that he's laid over the past 2 years in getting our library more attention by the public. The community work and connections that he's done, the outreach to media. It really, I think, put us over the top this time, and I think Director Lear and his staff have worked really hard to do a terrific job. So thank you, everybody. So moving on to the committee and liaison reports, item 7.2. The first is the 7.2.1 director evaluation, and Commissioner Smith is not here tonight. We did cancel the committee meeting that we had scheduled for today. So there is no report. Finance, I've been told, will be reported by Randall Neff.
Okay, the Finance Committee met on Monday, October the 17th. Commissioners McKenzie, Neff, Foxen were present. Commissioner Whistler was absent. Director Lear and CFO Neiman attended. We reviewed the monthly financial reports, which will be discussed later in this meeting. We discussed 2 proposed budget changes. One we were calling Plan A, which is if Measure Y passed, and Plan B was if it did not. Fortunately, that decision has been made. So the Plan A proposal will be presented later this evening. We discussed some minor changes to the roles and procedures of the Finance Committee, and it's up for approval later in this meeting. The next meeting will be Monday, November the 21st at 3 p.m.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7.2.3, the Advocacy and Public Relations Committee. Commissioner Foxen?
Yeah, they will be meeting next week. So
Okay.
I have nothing to report.
All right, and the Revenue Enhancement Committee is still on hiatus, and we should probably have a discussion at some point as to what we want to do with that committee at this time.
I was wondering if we shouldn't meet on our typical day, which is the 4th Monday of the month, which is November 28th, I believe, this month, and sit down and just kind of begin to lay out and see where we are and make some assessments and decisions as to what we could do or what we should do, and then come back to the commission with it.
Okay, so
That's
you think
what I was
the
wondering.
28th is possible to have a
I think
meeting?
28th is possible, yeah.
Okay, all right. And then 7.2.5, the foundation liaisons, Commissioner Garcia?
The only thing that's new right now for the foundation is that they have lost their executive director. And so I don't know if they will be recruiting for a new one yet. We'll know more on Wednesday after I attend their meeting. And also, we had discussed in advocacy and public relations that posters saying things like "New Hours brought to you by Measure Y," which would answer some of your questions as to where our money was going. When we talked, so that we would do those posters as people walked in, and we had that discussion in the meeting. New books brought to you by Measure Y, you know, that kind of thing, just to say this is what your money is buying. And then we'd have that as a discussion, and at some point the chair may recommend that.
All right, I think we also, at the Guerneville Lab meeting, and Ken might remember, but Bruce Robinson had a great suggestion for the kind of publicity that we should be sure to do when we do Measure Y activities.
Right. Specifically, he thought that each library should have a celebration on the first Monday that we're open, and what we're hoping to do that would be the first Monday in April. So we'll be looking into making something like that happen as we move forward.
Yeah, it was a great idea. So in item 7.2.6, the ad hoc OPEB retirement committee, we are slowly considering some members for that committee. We believe that we shouldn't have a huge committee, that maybe 5 people or so. And I know Ken's been working on that. We will be meeting soon and having a more thorough report on that.
Can I have a question?
Okay. Commissioner Grill?
Yeah, on these committees, at one time we had an SOP committee to define our role as commissioners, and somehow that's fallen through the cracks. And I think that possibly that may be a good topic, particularly if we could do a new round of retreats where we hired a facilitator and worked on that as a model.
Yes, I would like to get us to start planning a retreat. So let me just throw out there if there are commissioners who are interested in participating in planning that retreat. And yes, we do need to move that protocol committee along, because we did have some items that we had almost completed.
I think it falling off the commission packet this time was just an oversight by staff. I think we just didn't put it on there.
All right, thank you. So moving on to item 8, unless anybody had, I should open it up if any member of the public wishes to comment on any item that we've just covered. Then we'll move on to item 8, approval of the minutes. Did anybody have any corrections? I did find something that needed to be corrected myself, but I will open it up to anybody else. Okay. And this is in item on page 4 of the minutes, I guess, and 8 of the packet, or vice versa. And so at line 177, where the vote on the motion is Commissioner Tim May is not included in there. Commissioner Foxen is included in both the yays and the nays. So I don't remember how you voted, Commissioner Foxen.
Oh dear, neither do I. Yes, asking a minute. What was the Wells Fargo thing?
Yeah, I remember that you voted no on that, Commissioner Foxen.
Okay, so if is that correct, Commissioner Foxen?
Yeah. I think it was a no, yeah.
All right, so then if we delete Commissioner Foxen from the approved line and add Commissioner May. Okay. Yeah. He was here in other items, so I believe he's... Do we still have Commissioner May on the...
Yes, we do.
He's drinking Mai Tais.
Yeah.
Entertaining a...
I just want it corrected, yeah. So then with that correction, we can entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Commissioner Garcia has moved that we approve the summary minutes of October 3rd, 2016 as corrected, and Commissioner Ebright has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner May, can you hear us? Hi, Tim. Did you weigh in on that vote? On approval of the minutes as corrected? Okay. That's an aye from Commissioner May. I don't know that we had any press coverage or correspondence. Oh, they did. Okay. Somehow I missed that. Okay, so any comments about item number 9, correspondence and press coverage? All right, moving on to item 10, the consent calendar. We have one item, 10.1, approve the roles and responsibilities of the Sonoma County Library Commission Finance Committee. Any commissioner member requests that this be removed, and if I see none, then that item is approved by consensus. Now we're moving on to item 11, the discussion items. The first item we have is Director Lear's report, item 11.1.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. First of all, I had a mistake in my management report. I said that I got to go to the Colorado Library Association, and I did not. I only went to the California Library Association conference, so sorry about that mistake. I still have Colorado on my mind sometimes after having lived there so long. I too want to thank everybody that worked on the passage of Measure Y, library staff, you commissioners, the Friends, the Foundation, and the many, many community members that contributed to the effort over the last couple years. I've allowed myself to continue to be elated over the results, so I'm still just as happy as can be. I think it's a historic moment for our library system to achieve that second source of revenue, and I do think it'll put us on a healthy path forward for many years to come. So kudos to us. Tonight, Ken and Kia will share with you staff's recommendations for how to start achieving some of the things that we promised the voters in the expenditure plan. So you'll really get to see more of what staff would like us to do and which things we feel we should focus on first, knowing that the actual revenue from Measure Y won't start to come in until next July. For the second month, I put a mention in the manager report about a group that we're calling the Strategic Plan Steering Committee, but I'm working with Jamie Anderson and kind of a cross-departmental group of staff to really take another look at our strategic plan and compare it to all the tasks and services that we provide now and see if there's an opportunity to eliminate some things that don't seem to fit anymore, but then also to see if there's some gaps that exist to where we haven't yet begun to implement the plan in certain areas. And fortunately now we have the financial resources at hand that will allow us to fully achieve this strategic plan. I'm very proud of the facilities report that you all will see this evening. I think that's been an excellent process. That involves staff, community members, We worked with MK Think over many months, and I know that my staff are already using this document to start planning which facilities need to be addressed first in terms of condition and that. And it also provides what we're calling design elements, but it'll be a really great document to inform us of really how we want our facilities to function when we do renovate them. And it will also be a good blueprint for us to refer to if we're fortunate enough to build any new facilities in the coming years. So do take a look at that. One thing I want to do is next month I want to invite staff from Mid-Penn Housing to come before you all and describe where the Roseland Village project is. It's getting to the point where Ken and I and other library staff need to start communicating with the developer about what our space needs would be, because currently the library does have a site in those plans. So as of now, the plan of the developer is to include the library in this project and to, basically build the building for us. But I think it's time for Mid-Penn to come before you all and describe the project and how the library fits into it. So look for that in December. Lastly, I wanted to introduce Angelina Casiopo. She's our new community engagement specialist, and I'm really excited to have her on board. She's already starting to meet with agencies around the county like the Latino services providers and others, and I think it'll be a real boon to us to have somebody that every day is out in the community building these relationships. So I know several of you met Angelina at the beginning of the meeting, but if you haven't yet met her, please introduce yourselves to her. Again, I'm really tickled to have her. And that's it for my report.
Great. Thank you so much, Director Lear. Then we will move on to item 11.2, the management report itself. So that's the monthly activities report as well as the financial report. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the monthly management report? I just want to say that I am always so impressed by the numerous and interesting activities that our library does. And I know people say that, I think when Brett was first here, he said, your library really doesn't do as many programs and activities. But things really have stepped up, and the diversity and the real interest of all these activities is amazing to see. So I am constantly telling people that if they really want to know more about their libraries, that is the report that they should look at to see all the many things that are happening. So again, kudos to all of you, and keep up the great work. So now we'll move on to Director Neiman. Sorry.
Hey, don't promote him. He's not the director.
Huh?
That's right.
CFO Neiman.
I'm sorry. CFO Neiman, financial report.
Yeah, thank you. The financials start on page 26 of your packet. Few things just to go over real quickly. It was a pretty normal month. You can see our cash balance continues to go down. At this time of the year, we currently have $5.9 million in the cash balance. That'll go back up in middle of December when we get the first tax payment. We go down there, you can see some tax money did trickle in, only about $15,000. That's just odds and ends that come in periodically throughout the year. There were two expenditure items that are that I just wanted to note there. You can see line item 50801, the health insurance. There was a bit of a accounting keying error when we were keying those in, so September and October's expenses got put into September. So that'll wash out.
Which line is that under? Which line is that under?
50801. And that'll wash out next month as we move along. Then some computer equipment were purchased to replace. So there was a big computer equipment purchase also in 52142. The two items over $25,000 you can see there were PG&E and the EnvisionWare maintenance expense contract that you all had approved a few meetings back. So, other than that, there's nothing of significance to report unless someone has some questions.
Okay.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Again, I'll remember to ask the public if they have any comments that they'd like to add this time. All right. Find where I am. So that takes us to item 11.3, presentation of service plan implementation. Kyo Okasaki, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Or I can give you a phone book to stand on.
Phone book would be better. He offered me a phone book to stand on. But since there are no phone books, I'll be right here. Did you see the moon tonight?
Yes, and this
So I
morning.
say the moon is celebrating.
Yes, it
with
looked
us.
happy.
So congratulations. And I want to say thank you, Sonoma County.
Yes.
I am so grateful and honored that the people spoke so loudly that the library is a valuable community resource for everyone. So, and we'd like to show our appreciation for everyone's support by delivering on a promise to the people of Sonoma County. To that end, the senior management team has been working continuously over the month to put together a plan of service, which you have in front of you. But let's pause for a moment and review our mission. The library's mission is to bring information, ideas, and the people together to build a stronger community. So what is the plan? Our plan is a three-phased approach. The first phase will reopen Mondays and add 1 hour to Wednesday evening so that both evenings will be open until 9 p.m. starting April 2017. What does opening Monday mean? The opening Monday will offer children to have a safe place to come after school to do homework or read, to work on a computer, or attend events or classes. It means for the job seekers to have access to newspapers and other resources on first thing on Monday morning. It will offer families and working people to have access to the library after work or after dinner. It will offer those without computers to have access to libraries' free computers. And it will offer us and for the public to have more events and classes on Mondays. And I did not mention that you can pick up and check out your halls without waiting until Tuesday. And much more will be the benefit of opening Monday. The second phase is to add Sunday afternoon hours and add 2 hours on Saturdays. The third phase is later we will add evening hours to Tuesdays and Thursdays so that we'll have consistent hours Monday through Thursday until 9 p.m. So today's presentation has many building blocks. Today's presentation is an overview of the plan of service for the phase 1, starting April of 2017. So let's go through the blocks one by one. The first block is staffing. So additional staff coverage is needed to support Monday openings throughout the system. It is an estimated 18 additional full-time equivalents, and the details will be worked out. And we will continue to provide quality public service. That means consistent, effective, efficient, and a positive service to the public and for each other. We work together as a system to provide excellent service. The third block is collections. The second block, is collections. And there is a big list. But in summary, we would like to enhance your library experience by adding more items in all formats: books, DVDs, CDs, and electronic and streaming services, thus delivering them faster and making it easier for you to access. And we'll order more new books, focusing on children's and teens. And with Zenio, which is an electronic magazine subscription, you will have a choice of reading magazines, holding the magazines, or reading it online, even when the library is closed. And let me tell you a little bit about the Lucky Day books. Have you been lucky? And if you have, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, this is how it works. So let's say you have a book on hold, and you've been waiting for a week, maybe a month, maybe a little bit longer. And then one day you walk into your favorite local library, and on the new bookshelf, browsing shelf, you see that book you've been waiting for. And that's all yours. You just pick it up, check it out, and then enjoy. And you'll make somebody else lucky too, because you will be canceling your hold, won't you? The third block is events, workshops, and classes. For the 3-month period, April 1st through June 30th, we will add events and classes planned at the system level in support of the library's strategic plan. We'll offer cultural enrichment events such as storytelling, music, theater, dance, author events, and other lectures. We'll also offer classes on early literacy, computers, and other technology, health, information, and financial literacy, and more. And we will continue to offer story times, book clubs, hobby clubs, conversation classes, and more. And none of the above is possible without these valuable resources. And you see the list right here. One item I would like to highlight is an addition of translation service. With the additional funding, our marketing and the promotion effort can be bilingual, Spanish and English, throughout the system. So this is the overview of the plan of service for Phase 1, starting April 2017. Now Ken will take us through what it means in terms of budget.
Thank you, Kia.
All right, thank you, Keo. That's really the meat of the plan, what Keo gave you there. That's all the fun and cool stuff, and you know, we have to put numbers to it because it's part of what we do, just to make sure we can afford it and move it forward. So looking at everything that Keo described there, we talked to all the upper management, we talked to branch managers and everything, and really tried to look at what this was going to cost us for a 3-month period. And it comes up to a little over $1 million there. You can see $1,023,000. That's the current estimate to open Mondays, April through June, and the additional hour on Wednesdays. So if you look again here, the salary and benefits make up the majority of that, $367,000 or 35.9%. The collections are additional $165,000. Events and classes there, you can see $124,000. And facilities, what do we mean by facilities? It's things like utilities, additional janitorial, coming in an extra day, and all the supplies that are required for that. It could be landscaping, security for the central branch, things like that. And then there are also some one-time costs that we've identified to ramp up things. There's a couple facilities trucks that we need. We would propose to get at least one more facilities employee, and so we need a truck for them. Then we have one of our current trucks is only running on 7 out of 8 cylinders and leaking oil quite profusely, so we plan on buying 2 trucks to get that taken care of. And we would also invest in another delivery truck, so we could have the routes happen and delivery happen all the 6 days of the week, Monday through Saturday. And then there's also money put in this $1 million for at least 2 or maybe 3 more laptop labs that we can move around the county for classes and events. And eventually, as we move forward in the service plan down the road, we'll have either laptop labs or computer labs, one way or another, in every branch. So that's what that's looking like. The next one kind of breaks it down in a little bit of a kind of a number geek look at things. It's it's $78,000 per Monday open, and that translates into a little over $6,500 per hour. Just to give you an example, this still isn't ramping up as far as we want it to go. Currently, with an $18.2 million budget and 40 hours, we spend about $8,700 per hour that we're open. If we move to 66 hours open with additional tax revenue, a $30 million budget, we're looking at about $8,800 per hour that we're open. So we're beginning to ramp it up. As Keough said, this is phase 1. We'll begin adding more and more as time goes on. So, any questions on that?
I have a question. So if we're spending about $1 million a quarter to open Mondays with all the infrastructure, is that a fair statement?
Yep, most of it. Yep.
Okay, so that's $4 million, and our projected. That's over and above our current budget. That's a true statement?
Yes.
Yes. So that means that approximately, if we're generating another $10 million a year, we're spending 4 of that 6. I mean, 4. So we're winding up with $6 million of further expendable income. Is that disposable to do things in the library? Is that?
Yes.
So.
Yes, and that some of that will be. A lot of it will be taken up by opening Sundays, additional hours on Saturdays, and the additional hours on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings that Keough talked about.
So where does this fit? We got this very sophisticated, detailed report on bringing our libraries themselves into the 21st century with many, many very beneficial new designs. Where does that fit into that budget, just off the top of your head?
For April through June, there's really not much of it in there. Although what we will be doing and what we've learned already from the facility master plan is we'll be making a few more tweaks and doing a few additional things to the Cloverdale branch, which is currently closed and slated to open in mid-December.
Right.
And then as we move forward on the Northwest refresh, we're taking that a step further too, based on the facilities master plan and some of the ideas and things that need to be done that we wouldn't have necessarily done without Measure Y. And that'll keep on moving as we do each branch.
And where's the funding for those projects coming from out of this?
This fiscal year, we took it, you approved it to be taken out of fund balance for those.
Right. That was extra fund balance. That's what we had in excess of intake.
So, with the things that Ken's describing, all of that would need to be pulled out of the fund balance this fiscal year because the Measure Y revenue won't start coming to us until fiscal year 17-18. So opening Mondays and doing these things, it's what staff felt we should do sooner rather than later, again, to demonstrate to the voters that we're responsive. But we don't, we don't have the tax revenue coming in to do that until July, and then we'll completely begin doing all the things that are in Measure Y, which are facilities, technology, better collections, more hours, and more educational classes for adults and kids. But this is the plan to do some things even before the revenue starts arriving.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the commission? Commissioner Housen?
Earlier on, there's a priority thing. You had 1, 2, 3, and... Speak into the mic. Oh, excuse me. Earlier on, we had the, what's the plan, first, second, third, and second was open Sundays and had 2 hours on Saturday, and third was open Tuesdays and Thursday evenings.
Right.
I would like to consider the possibility of reversing those, primarily because we had, Sunday is something we've never had in the branches, but we did have open every evening or 4 evenings a week for the high school, junior high kids that spend a lot of time doing stuff there. And I think I would say it's more of a priority to me for sure, and that was mentioned at my library advisory board meeting this week, to go back to what we had first and then add stuff later on.
Okay.
So I'd like to consider that as kind of switching those a little bit until we see how we're going, because I don't want to ever possibly miss out on Monday through Thursday open till 9 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That would be really an important thing to me. Okay. And then the other thing is, are we going to get something that's a little geekier instead of just this general kind of stuff that's not really specific about how the money's being spent? Because what you just said about the $4 million, and then we have $2 million left over, that's really good information. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of stuff I think we have to get out to the public.
Right.
We really need to get some geeky stuff there, get it out to the newspapers, and let them know what's going on and what the plan is.
Yeah, right now we're just kind of constant. What we're talking about is the April through June, and as we start our budget process for next fiscal year, which will start in the next couple of weeks, we'll really be drilling down and formulating what that'll look like for next year, and as we go through that, and we'll be discussing that, I would guess, each commission meeting as we move through this.
I mean, I've had Ken and Keo and Vicki and myself working on a detailed budget for weeks now, so we do know how we intend to allocate every dollar of the Measure Y money. I've asked Ken to start with sharing that with the Finance Committee, and then we can see, if we want to get into that level of detail here at the General Commission meetings, but staff has already done that work. There's also a document that off the clock I worked on for the campaign committee that we brought to the Press Democrat when the editorial board met, and that document too has that level of detail about how we intend to spend the money, but that information already exists. It really gets into the number of events we'll produce and how much they'll cost and how many more books we'll buy and how much that costs and how much we'll spend on our facilities and IT, so that work's been completed in draft form. Now, the level of interest in the public with that level of granularity, I'd have to talk to Angelina and others on that, but certainly that data exists.
Any other commissioners? I wanted to ask Commissioner May, haven't forgotten you, if he had any comments or questions.
I have a question
Not very well.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Just a second, they're adjusting it.
All right, try again, Tim.
Okay,
That's better.
Okay, my question or point is that we're going to need to go to the voters again in 10 years. And so it might be a good idea, as things happen, like we have events and so forth, just have a little thing that says, brought to you by Measure Y funds, so the public is ongoingly aware of what is happening. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Well, I would like to see us not have to go back to the voters, so I'd like us to also work on a plan to figure out another way forward too, if possible, so that we don't just have to keep going back and asking a re-up. And I'm not sure how that would work, but I think it's worth considering, and it might be something that the Revenue Enhancement Committee can take on. Is there anybody else who has a question for Ken or Keo? If not, I have a couple more. One is, how have you figured out how to track this money? Because I know we've been asked from different people, how are we going to, we have to report. We've agreed to have an oversight committee that we need to put together, but we need to report specifically back, the geeky report of how we what money we've gotten and how we're using it. So how have you figured out how to do that?
Right. We're setting up a separate fund as required in the ballot language in our accounting system. When the sales tax revenue comes into, it'll go into that fund. So the revenue side of things is pretty easy. The expense side of things will have to begin to identify first of all, the new people and everything the new people that we hire, and make sure that our payroll system handles them correctly as far as what fund they get charged to. So the people side of things, and then the expense side of things. When the invoices come in, we really have to be diligent about identifying the new things versus the old things. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the simplest way to say it, I think. So it will be a chore for the finance department, but it's something that finance departments do.
They're good at it.
They'll just have to make it work.
Okay, thanks for that. And so we're taking money out of the fund balance to start up before we actually start receiving the money. So how does that work? Are we going to pay that back into the fund balance when we get the tax money in and identify it that way? And these things would then truly be Measure Y things. Otherwise, they're not really Measure Y things if we're using fund balance money.
Well, that's something we could do either way. But we will be coming to you in the future to make it a budget adjustment to cover these expenses for the April through June timeframe. It is something that we could charge back against Measure Y in the future, or we could just say, this is the thank you, and Measure Y will give us even more. So that may be the way we want to go with it, that we're using our fund balance that we have to say thank you, and we want to roll this out real quickly, but that can be done either way.
It's just thinking, and maybe this is something the Finance Committee can talk about in further detail, but we won't be able to use Measure Y money for anything that the fund balance could use, that could cover in the future. So I would think that we would want to think about that carefully.
Right.
Then one more question. How did you come to the number of staff that would enable us to reopen on Mondays and add these other hours? And maybe, I don't know if Keo wants to weigh in on that, or because it's hard for us, I know we've talked about this over the years about how much staff would we need to do these things, and it's been difficult to come to an answer, so I'm curious.
It is an art it is not easy. What you have or what we come to is a rough estimate. But the first 3 months, the April through June, is sustaining the level of service we have, adding the system planned events and so forth. So that calculating, adding the hours on Mondays, and then what percentage of staff would need it. Actually, we looked at the entire schedule and came up with that, but it will be discussed in detail and be finalized.
Okay, so as we go through, if we find we need more or less, it'll be adjusted based on our experience?
I would think so,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
I want to add to that because the staffing reflected in the initial services that were described, that's almost entirely only frontline staff, and we're certainly going to need to build capacity across the organization. So if we want to get out into the community more, we may need to hire a children's outreach specialist, and if we want to do more service designing, we're going to need staffing throughout the organization in marketing and perhaps in finance and IT. So this initial cost out is for being able to open our doors and have staff in the buildings, but we're actually going to have our support staff just working harder because we're not adding many support personnel beyond the frontline staff at this time, but we certainly will have to going forward once the Measure Y money starts coming in.
Commissioner Garcia had a question?
I have a question regarding the committee that is supposed to be formed and that every commissioner appoints. When are we going to do that? And what's the timeline on that? And we're appointing members.
Well, if I could just weigh in, and then I'll ask, I know Brett's been thinking about that too. So I was figuring, and I also got a question from Commissioner May on this. I think we have a couple of months to work out, how the committee, what the work of the committee will be and how, what their duties will be and how they're going to interact with the staff and with the commission and report out to the public. So I think we need to come up with protocols for the committee and then develop suggestions for commissioners on how to go about appointing people. And Director Lear?
No, that sounds good. I mean, I had the same question. I sent Elaine an email about that about a week ago, along with Ken and folks, because I've had a couple of people in the community ask because they were aware, they read the ordinance closely and they're aware that there's the citizens oversight piece. So I too have been, wondering how quickly we'll put that group together. But what you just said sounds good.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Neff?
I'd like to see a lot more an aggressive posture on being open Mondays. I was talking to some people on Saturday, and several of them actually thought we'd be open like today. Okay? So what I would like to see is we plan to open 4 hours on Monday, starting like mid-January, and then we can ramp up the other hours as time goes on. But I think being open 2 to 6 p.m. on Mondays, starting mid-January, would be a really big thank you to all of the people that voted for this measure. And looking at this number that Ken graciously gave us, that's like $26,000 per Monday for being open 4 hours.
I would caution us against being that quick because when you look at the staffing in our libraries like Keo has done over the last few months, you've got people that are working their maximum shifts now. So in order to open more hours, there is hiring that needs to be done. And I think to ask us to hire those additional folks, get them recruited and trained in that tight of a deadline over the holidays probably can't be done.
Any other commissioner comments? I'd like to open this up for any comments or questions from the public, if there are any. Seeing none, I thank you very much, Keo and Ken, for your reports. And we look forward to hearing more about this and more discussions. So that takes us to item 11.4, which is presentation of the final draft of the Facilities Master Plan report from MK Think. And we have...
I think Fergus Wilson's going to kick us off. He's our facilities manager.
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. And I, too, am very excited about Measure That Passed, Measure Y, being one of the new kids on the block and coming into the Sonoma County system, the library, and knowing that we have funds available to work on the buildings and get them up to LEED certified green standard is one of my goals that I'm working on. So I'd like to introduce Evelyn Lee from MK Think, and we put together a little presentation today. We picked out one of the libraries, Petaluma, to make an example of the facilities master plan that we want to implement later on. So, Evelyn.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. By now, I believe all of you have at least received electronically the final draft of the Facilities Master Plan, and I'd like to note that it is a final draft, so we are still open for comments from the commissioners at this point.
I did hear one commissioner at least say that they had difficulty opening it and weren't able to read it. So maybe all the commissioners could you also had trouble. I've had trouble. Commissioner Garcia had trouble. So
we will work. I will work with Fergus to make sure that it's in a place where all of you have access to that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we're going to take a very brief 15 minutes and try to get through all 9 points in the 15 minutes. So here goes. Flip forward and flip forward one more. This is a brief introduction to MK Think. I think if anything that we want to highlight on this slide is that we are architects, strategists, and innovators, but we also strive to maximize human performance in the built environment. So ultimately, what your libraries can do for your county is what we're trying to optimize. Next slide, please. So one of the things that drives MK Think is our data-driven approach to our analysis. And you'll get to see that a lot, and especially the systems assessment report. Also, we have a deep history of working with the public sector, and we help you make decisions about your capital asset planning process. Next slide, please. The reason why we're called in to do the Facilities Master Plan is twofold. So one was, out of direction from the strategic plan, as well as the call from the Joint Powers of Agreement to develop a comprehensive facilities master plan that would look at the future of the library facilities over the next 10 years. Thank you. So this, again, is a slide that you've seen previously when I first presented on the progress of the Facilities Master Plan. Some of the things I would like to highlight in this particular slide is that we are looking to be respectful of the 5 tenets of the strategic plan that you just wrapped earlier this year or late last year. We want to look to redefine the longstanding associations of library culture as solely a quiet place for scholarly activity. And I think your discussion earlier in the commission meeting regarding how your programming has expanded over the last few years is pushing that in the right direction, and as well as creating a positive atmosphere that enhances the community client experience. Next slide. So the facilities master plan is developed, is a 4-part series developed with these other 3 supporting assets. So there's a library system assessment that looks at each of the library and the demographics with regard to every single library. There is overarching design guidelines for recommendations you might look at when you are looking to refresh, build new, or improve existing library facilities. And then there's a general architectural facilities assessment that did take into consideration large mechanical fixtures as well. This is the project process. It's a combination of site visits, talking with the library managers about understanding the journey mapping of a book, as well as how staff and the community move through the library. We did a number of stakeholder engagements. I called each of the library commissioners independently. I know if there's a few of you that are new to the commission, as well as running some exercises with both the Friends of the Libraries and the JPA members, or the owner of the building owners. And then we took a deep look at the stakeholder engagement process that was done from the strategic plan and the findings from there. We did a deep data analysis as well as a demographic assessment. And the key on the bottom references where you can find each of these items. So really quickly looking at demographics, the overall population density has not increased much from 2000 to 2010. We don't anticipate it changing too much in the future. However, if we go to the next slide, this is the changing demographics from 2000 to 2010. So you can see the growth in the Hispanic or Latino community. So it was great to hear, and I know she just stepped out, but what the foundation was doing with the Latino service providers. Next slide, please. So this is a look at the overall change in population for each of the libraries. This is future casting from 2010 to 2021, and then the next slide looks specifically at the age distribution change in the future. And if you have any questions, I think, we're open to taking questions during the presentation too, if we're moving too fast. But this is a highlight of some of the things that you will find in the systems portion of the document. The next slide looks at age distribution by some of the individual libraries, which were a little more interesting to look at. So you'll see that Occidental has a huge increase in age from those 65 and above, where Roseland's overall population is looking to grow throughout your age range. And Petaluma, it kind of peaks out. So there may be a greater interest to grow both the children's section and the teen section based on the number of young families that you have moving into the area, and then look at what we can do to support the 55 and older age demographic. Next slide. So the facilities master plan takes in all of the things that you saw on the process slide, but it also specifically looks at the overall building condition, code compliance, especially related to ADA, building systems, especially related to mechanical systems, and just other considerations. One of the things that Brett and Ken really wanted us to look at, and Fergus, since you were brought on, is the sustainability factors relative to the library. And this says Fergus is starting, but I think I'm going to continue on. So the next slide, right?
Right, the next slide.
So just looking, so Fergus said we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into Petaluma. So this is the breakdown of, so the overall percent change in demographics and then by the age split for Petaluma Library. So looking at the two slides that we showed earlier. And then the next slide. The next slide highlights how the Petaluma space is broken up relative to the system average. So for instance, there's no teen space in the system average for all of your libraries. There's 0.6% dedicated to teen space. And Petaluma has a smaller children's section than the system-wide average. That's how you would read that graph. Moving on.
Okay. Next slide. Okay, so I picked out the Petaluma Library because of its order that it's in as far as doing a refresh on the multiple libraries that we currently have. Next slide. So on Petaluma Library, we found out that it performs well, as far as an overall building. Its size is relative to the patrons, building systems and codes, but it performs poorly on ADA compliance. So we focused on that. Next slide. Recommendations for the Petaluma Library: refresh library interior and exterior, bring it up to code, update to comply with ADA compliance, and replace building systems. Building condition: I've walked around Petaluma Library and I looked at the windows. They need to be updated, as far as energy efficient. They got updated windows out there now, whereas they got coating on them that reflect the sunlight, and they're more energy efficient. Walk around outside the library, I've seen that there's some landscaping that needs to be done, especially where the eaves and overhangs are, where the sun doesn't hit it and the grass doesn't grow. We can do something better with that, landscaping. An interior and evidence of recent roof leak should be addressed also. So going around the library, we just had the rainy season. I've seen some water coming in also, but that's probably typical at a lot of libraries too. Next slide. Code compliance: egress doors should have illuminated signage on them. So that was all around the library. And staff areas should be updated. So, up in Cloverdale, I know that we're going to update the staff area and put new appliances in there and some new furniture and make that look better for the staff that works there. Next slide. ADA compliance: the doors and hardware should be upgraded throughout. Access to the mezzanine should be ADA compliant also. So I know I was having discussions with the Petaluma Library as far as either moving the historical section downstairs or making access with kind of a corner elevator to go upstairs, if we're going to use upstairs for that. Next slide. Petaluma Library building systems. All the packaging units should be replaced. A lot of the packaging units at the Petaluma Library and the various other libraries are outdated as far as the refrigerants that's used in it. There's new refrigerants and green refrigerants. So in a lot of cases, you can't recharge the system in case you lose pressure with the current refrigerant that's in there, so we have to upgrade them. And then also, as far as controlling the libraries, the different zones, there's lots of complaints at Petaluma and other libraries that some patrons are cold, some patrons are hot, and some need a little bit more heat and everything. If we put building automation system in there, we will have zones in the library that'll kind of make the patrons a little bit happier of where they're sitting. Next slide. Other considerations, including an enclosed teen area that complies with the guidelines set out in Appendix 2. Furniture and finishes to comply with the guidelines set out in Appendix 2 also. Upgrade children's area to comply with guidelines set out in Appendix 2 and design guidelines. Add additional children's soft seating and children's-sized chairs to the children's area. And relocate the upstairs history room to a space downstairs or like I said, we'd have to put an elevator in to make it ADA compliant to go upstairs. Exterior space to be upgraded to a programmable space and to comply with the outdoor space guidelines set out in Appendix 2. I'm going to turn it over to...
I just want to jump in for a sec, Fergus. So I know this has already been stated, but, tonight Fergus used the Petaluma Library as an example, but what's great about the report is every library has this level of detail that gets into the health of the equipment, whether the layout of the building is still working from the staff perspective, from the public perspective. So each library in the report has this same level of detail.
I had a quick question. What year was this library built?
The year of the Petaluma Library. 1976.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, I'm going to let Evelyn continue with the presentation.
Well, the last slide alluded a lot to Appendix 2, the design guidelines. So I just wanted, this is the overall index to the design guidelines in terms of what is contained. It's very much aspirational in terms of where we would like to see the library move forward in the future. So design, this is just an example of, we have an example of existing not so great case studies, an example of, again, aspirational case studies in terms of the future design of the libraries. And also in the report, we've noted which libraries these are, so you can look at them for reference as well. We've also gotten into more specific space standards, so we do a lot of education and workplace planning as well. So we've taken a hint from that and looking at past library projects to also inform how what may go into a private office for the staff and how you may configure a meeting room of various sizes. This just happens to be the large that we pulled. In our design guidelines, we made reference to the need for more meeting rooms in general for community use for various programs. And then I'll just hand it back over to you. Did you want to talk about current implementation?
Yes. Final documents to be presented to the Commission in December 2016. The timeline for the final implementation is the Cloverdale Library is currently under a refresh. We've taken that down. They had demolition out there, and carpet's been torn up, and electricians currently out there working now. So we're on target with everything to come back up mid-December as of right now. Northwest Library, I've been working with getting the quotes from together to the architects for making a plan and designing and hoping and praying that Measure Y go through so I could do a lot more than what I anticipated, which it did. So now I have to redo my plans. I had a plan A and a plan B. So with Northwest Library, I anticipate getting that done and getting it approved and starting on that January 30th, 2017. Petaluma Library, that's going to be another one that I'll be planning on after the Northwest Library, but I don't have a date on that one because I want to get through Cloverdale and the Northwest Library. So deadline for comments would be the end of November 2016.
And given your accessibility or lack of accessibility to the report, we're happy to extend that a little bit if you need for us to, since there was a mention.
Yeah, I thought that Ken can verify this, but I thought that we were now on a January timeline for this coming back to the commission because since this meeting's occurring so late in November and then the December meeting so early, staff only have about a week to work with the document in order to put it in its final form. So we'd like to bring it back to the commission in January.
And then hopefully we'll get to remove draft from the report. Any questions?
I think that some of the commissioners have questions.
Of course.
If you want to identify yourself, I'm happy to. Commission. I think it starts with Commissioner
And then I
McKenzie.
also wanted to invite Rachel Bramwell from my team down to respond to questions, just in case.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes, I'm very impressed. There's tons of great stuff in here. I wanted to reflect back just for a second on the demographic assessment. I'm just kind of digesting this tonight, so there's a lot to kind of take in, but I wasn't sure where these demographics came from. I just, of course, always focus on, what I know about, and I think the Roanoke Park growth assessment is very low. And it's kind of confusing. It says, let's see, from 2010 to 2021, these zones have the greatest population growth. Well, that's projected to have, I gather, because we're not at 2021.
Right.
But where did these come from? Because, Roanoke Park currently has a very large university district right now under development.
So these are MK Think projections. So these were done by our in-house data analysts. So these are MK Think projections, which were done in-house by our data analysts. And because this is explained in greater detail in the documents, which you'll read, it's pretty complex how this was figured out. But specifically to break down for each library area, because there's no census projections for that yet, it was done bespoke by MK Think.
But by how? I mean, by looking at the city's general plans?
It was a number of things which they're outlined in the document.
And that's the report that we haven't looked at yet?
Right, that they're going to give us access to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the system assessment document.
Okay, because I really question this number. Also, someone mentioned that on this nice page, I think it's 28, where these nice pictures of what the future could look like. I thought that Evelyn said that's noted where these are, but I can't read anything on here that says that.
So this is purely a sampling of what is in the report.
Right.
So the report has called out what libraries each of these are.
Okay, so we can't see that here.
No.
Okay.
So the presentation, the report itself, the system assessment, I think is over how many pages?
Over 200 pages.
The system
it's 200
assessment
pages,
is
okay.
over 200 pages,
Okay.
just because, as Ken said, we go do a deep dive in every single library. At the front of the report, you should get your response to the demographics questions. Because there is no official census tract looking, surrounding every single library area, the way that was compiled is pretty. We described it the best we could in the report, but it is a projection based on growth from between the 2000 and 2010.
But does the report detail your sources for the, okay, so that's good.
It does.
And then I do remember looking at the report that in the report, those sample libraries, they do have call outs that tell you exactly which libraries those are.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be curious to see if you've looked at the city's general plans, because I think that it tells you a lot more than just looking at census reports and trying to do projections. So I'll be looking at that. And my last question is, have we looked at how these, the refresh, the order and that these buildings are being refreshed? Have we looked at that as a commissioner? Who decided that?
I've personally walked every library and looked at it and determined, even before I looked over the facility master plan, which ones that I thought needed to be refreshed first. Of course, Cloverdale was beginning when I hired it in July, so that was ongoing. With Northwest, definitely, without even looking at the plan, I thought really needed help after Cloverdale. So I looked at that and discussed it with Ken and with Brett, and Northwest was going to be the second project.
Well, that's why, too, I wanted the staff to spend another month with this document, because although staff and MK Think have worked closely throughout this project, MK Think did generate a lot of the content, but I just want to be positive now that before we label it the facilities master plan, that staff is comfortable with the recommendations in there. So that's why I want staff to go over it closely yet one more time to make sure that the timelines put forward in that align with what Fergus and Ken think they should be. And then certainly you all have an opportunity to react to the document as well before adopting it. But I certainly want it to reflect staff's recommendations.
Right. But does it have a list of all of us? Does it just stop at Petaluma, or does it carry through the whole system, this full report? We haven't seen
it. It goes through the whole system. Okay. Every library's on there.
Okay. Including the order?
The order, yes, it goes high, medium, and low. So you'll see the low priority, the high priority, and the medium priority.
Great. Thank you for.
Are there other questions? Commissioner Ebright?
Yeah, I have a question. In your stakeholder engagement, that's where I guess I would put it. Was there any work done or looked at workplace safety? How are we improving the health and safety of the people who actually work in our libraries? You know, bending, lifting, twisting, all of those sorts of things. Is that a component of your analysis anywhere of our buildings? You know, shelf height, I mean, I don't know what they would be. I'm looking to you to see if that's the case.
Right. No, I mean, nothing specifically regarding ergonomics of the workplace. That I would, safely say is a bit out of our typical scope when it comes to overall facilities planning. I didn't know what.
I'd say what was looked at, though, because Ken and I made that clear, what the contract is, workflows of the staff were carefully looked at. So if you had one piece of equipment in one part of the room and another 10 feet away, and somebody had to touch both of those to do a process, we did certainly look at things like that, to where, you know, are the workspaces laid out in a way that, reduces competitive or repetitive motion and things like that.
Anybody else? Commissioner May?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question has to do with looking at what is the influence of, for example, I know of 3 possible new libraries in the future, people working and thinking about them, particularly Roseland and then Sebastopol and maybe Windsor. How does that influence the look at the master plan over time?
Depending on if we're going to replace a library or refresh a library, the budget, I'm assuming, and Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that the budget could be affected. You know, spending $4 to $6 million refresh a library compared to like $300,000 or $400,000 to do a light refresh.
Yeah, I would think that, you know, we've been aware all along that if funding emerges for certain buildings, they may jump ahead in the queue because we wouldn't want to turn down an investment from one of the JPA members if they were willing to invest in their libraries. So I could see it influencing the queue that way. I do think the report makes it clear which facilities are currently inadequate. So I think that could lead to conversations with some of the JPA members to share these results and see what can happen. But as far as Windsor starting to look at investing in a new facility, Sebastopol and Roseland, I think we just have to keep those talks ongoing and then be somewhat fluid with this plan and allow opportunities for growth to happen if they're within our financial means.
Then also within the design guidelines, there is kind of an optimal layout if you were to design a library new from the ground up. So we have left those guidelines behind for those opportunities.
I have a question if everybody else has had their opportunity to, and you can always jump in, but the low priority list, I see the Sonoma County Archives, which I've seen, and it's hard to understand why that would be a low priority to fix that place up. So I don't know how it got on the low priority because it clearly needs a lot of work.
From talking to the county manager that manages that building, it's first of all, it's not the library's building, it's the county's building. And they're talking about that they're going to start, they have to clean the place up first, and then they're going to start doing some kind of projects over there. But as far as low priority, that would be the last building to get rehabbed.
Well, all of our buildings except the annex library are owned by other entities, cities and the county. So
our analysis also takes into the fact use or accessibility to the community, or how often they're accessed. And that plays also highly into kind of the prioritization, because it's not just purely about the building, but it's about the community it serves and how that community accesses, or even, as we found with Northwest Library, people driving through that community tend to access the building. So I would say that speaks to the, how infrequently the collection is accessed.
And it could be because it's difficult to access, partly because of the location and the condition of the building. So I would just question whether we should move that up a little bit, but I'm happy to go look at the whole report in more detail.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any comments from our audience? Sorry, Commissioner McKenzie.
Yeah, we're only getting an online 200-page, that's the only way we're going to be able to look at this whole thing? I really don't want to sit at my screen and go through 200 pages.
So Ken is just saying that he can get you printed copies as well if you prefer that method to digest the report.
And it would be in the January board packet, right, as a print copy? I understand. Would that be our intent or no?
Well, I think...
And that's just one of the appendices.
Anybody that would like to have a print copy, please let us know tonight, and we'll get it to you as soon as possible in order for you to review it and get any comments to Fergus by the end of November or a week later. But we want you all to be able to review it if you can't do it online.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Ebert?
I just have one comment, and I really appreciate the comprehensive nature of this and the design process and the pieces that went into this. It seems something whole that we can work with, and it will take us forward for quite many years to come as we refresh and perhaps get some new libraries as well. So I appreciate the work that was done here. It's very interesting to look at, especially the condition summary was interesting to look at and what the details were. So overall, I appreciate the work that y'all have done. It looks great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ebright. And I just noticed Commissioner Foxen has printed everything, so this is the packet that you guys should expect to review in the future.
There you go.
So I just wanted to clarify this. What we'll see in January is a final draft, or
is the final
this is the
draft
final
as
draft, and so what
provided?
the commission will be presented in January is the.
So how I started to look at this is we hired a contractor to create a report for us, and staff have not yet agreed that this is our facilities master plan. So I just want the staff to spend more time with this and be sure that what we put forward to the commission is what we're confident we should and can do. I don't expect that it will change much, but again, I just wanted staff to have a little more time with it.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying it. And again, thank you for your work and for looking at our libraries that do need work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that takes us to item 11.5, Roseland Community Library staffing. And Patrick Preston will be giving us this report.
So I just wanted to give some background on staffing for Roseland. In the 2016-17 budget process, a recommendation was made to the Commission for one FTE librarian position at Roseland. As staff has looked at the current operation and future needs, that recommendation has been modified, and we feel that actually it's more appropriate to staff that Roseland position currently with a full-time senior library associate. And so I want to just give some background on how we came to that decision, and if you have any questions or comments, why they're certainly welcome. In making that decision, staff has looked at these two guiding principles. One, what position would provide the greatest opportunity for community members to apply for that position, while at the same time meet the operating needs of the library. And those could be, immediate community members in the Roseland area or the Greater area. But again, what kind of position would be most likely to draw the greatest participation? Second, at the same time, what position would be able to meet the operating needs of Roseland, including circulation, reference advisory, presenting programs, performing community outreach, and what have you. And as we've reviewed the different job classifications, whether it be a librarian 1 or 2 or a senior library associate or library associate, we feel that a senior library associate is in fact able to perform all of these tasks under the direction of a librarian or branch manager. Both of those positions will in fact be accessible to that individual at the Roseland Library. Roseland is a new and growing endeavor for the system, and we feel that bringing someone in at this level would provide a foundation for establishing both current and future needs, and as well as providing for future growth. It's always, we'll have the ability to add librarian positions in the future as needed, and it's certainly our intent and expectation that as the Roseland Library grows, that there will in fact be librarian positions. There, almost certainly would be a branch manager position, but that's not where we're at right now, and we feel that the senior library associate would be a good place to start. Also, I'd point out that the current staff that are serving Roseland would return to their home branches, but they would still be available to fill in for absences as needed or to assist with special programs. So it's not like those individuals and their expertise would not be available to the Roseland Library. Just with regards to the classification itself, a senior library associate requires a 4-year degree and a minimum of 4 years work experience in any combination of customer service, community outreach, or library experience, including experience in a school library. A librarian, however, requires a master's degree in library science, though there is no minimum work experience. So, again, those are the reasons why we feel comfortable moving forward, staffing Roseland at this point in time with a senior library associate, as opposed to what was originally suggested when the budget proposal which went forth, which, the naming of a librarian was also partly a placeholder for the budget. So with that, any questions or thoughts about that?
I see one hand. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes, the librarian or the branch manager that would be available to this person, where would they be?
So currently that branch manager that's available is the Northwest branch manager, Kate Keaton.
Okay.
And she's already serving in that capacity.
So that's the branch manager that still be available to this person?
Right, the same person that's currently available to the individuals working at Roseland right now.
Is any part of this have to do with our thinking that it might be more difficult to hire a librarian, a master's degree? I mean, is there just fewer of them around, or?
Well, there's clearly fewer around, and as I mentioned, one of our guiding principles was, what position could we come up with that might be most likely to draw the greatest number of individuals from the community? And that's not to suggest that there aren't degreed librarians in the Roseland community, but whether it's Roseland or any place else, there's certainly a far less number of those individuals than there are people with a four-year degree who've maybe had some kind of community experience, community outreach experience, or school library experience, which school library experience typically doesn't require a degreed librarian.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, because as Patrick and I have talked about this now for a few months, when I was thinking of our current libraries, most of them, if not all, have one or more or several staff that do live within the communities. So it was something that I thought about quite a bit. What are the job duties needed of this person? And also knowing that it would be nice to have the first staffer perhaps either be from the community or near the Roseland community, because that's something that I've had community members remind me of over the last few months is, please try to create a job that folks that live in the community might actually be qualified to apply to. And I do think that putting the position out at the senior library specialist level, we wouldn't ask people to do any tasks that aren't within that job description, and we have to look closely at what's happening in that building now, and we feel that everything that's happening in that building now can be done by a senior library specialist. But Patrick and I others do also feel that we'd be more likely to probably be able to pull from that community if we didn't require someone to have a master's in library science.
And I would just add to that, Keo and I have looked closely at it also. We certainly wouldn't not have made this recommendation if we felt that this position would not be able to meet the community's needs in terms of programming and community outreach. And again, this position would be under the direction of another librarian or branch manager, and they would be able to perform those functions.
So when it says here that a branch manager or a librarian is accessible, what kind of situations would they need to contact a branch manager or a librarian to assist them, and what kind of response time would they have?
Okay. I'm actually going to have Keo help answer that question. She's probably in a better position.
And we do have that system in place now with our Forestville and Occidental libraries, where the staff there are under the supervision of Nancy Sampson at Guerneville.
So I have served as a quasi-branch manager for the Roseland Library, community library. The staffing, absences, vacations, or same day, sick calls, then the branch manager would be arranging for somebody else to step in to give coverage. If there are, although Roseland Community Library has been very, very fortunate that we have not had any patron issues. Roseland community people are fantastic. So, but if there were any, that is when the branch manager will be consulted. The programming, the events planning, what sort of events we need to plan for the next quarter, for the going forward. Branch manager would definitely be involved in that. The collection, we have the collections manager, children's services coordinator who are doing that, but on-site visit would be the branch manager's job. Not every day, but maybe once a month, depending on that person's assessment, to see if the shelves are too crowded, what other materials may be needed, professional judgment call. Am I answering your question?
Yes, thank you. So how many staff do we have there now, Keo?
Oh, we have a beautiful patchwork staffing. So, easiest way to answer that question is we have 2 staff members each day, each hour of operation. Mm-hmm. But we do have we borrowed staff members from different branches. We are using extra help staff persons. So let's see, maybe 5 or 6 persons are sharing those hours.
So the plan with filling this position is to not have the patchwork. You'd still have.
We will still have the half of the reference part or the librarian portion of the wonderful patchwork will be gone, but the library specialist portion. So we have a library specialist combination team right now. So half of the team will be staffed by this one person. The other will be 2 persons, maybe 3 persons.
If I can add something, this gets us, it gets a foot in the door with us having a permanent staffer at Roseland. With Measure Y passing, staff could certainly come back with the next budget and request additional staffing for the temporary Roseland Library. When I've spoken to the developer recently, he anticipates it'll take 3 to 5 years to build the permanent facility. So we could certainly look at adding a second staffer to Roseland within the next year, but I'm eager to get the first one hired as soon as possible.
By the way, we will be adding Monday hours to Roseland too.
Okay. So
within our restriction. We cannot have it all day long because, we're sharing with the Boys and Girls Club, but we'll have the same hours, 10 to 2.
Okay, so that'll up us to 24 hours? 24. And did we ever consider just recruiting for a librarian for that position? Not second guessing how many people might apply to it, and then if we weren't able to fill that position, to then, consider something else.
I'd like to answer that, Kia. We considered it, but again, it goes into the process that Patrick described. What I've learned from this is to probably be as general as possible with FTEs when we budget for them, if we're not yet entirely clear 6 months out of how we want to write the description. But I've been all over the place with this over the last several months. I've talked to Patrick about, do we create a unique position that is Spanish language outreach? Do we do a librarian? Do we do a senior library specialist? So we certainly considered librarian along with several other things, and this is where we've gotten to as a staff to feel that this is the best fit.
So this person, whoever this is, who fills this position, will be a full-time position, so they'll be obviously working someplace else too when Roseland's not open, or how is this?
You want to answer? So, again, one of their major responsibilities will be outreach, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keo, but that outreach doesn't necessarily have to be restricted to Roseland. We have, Hispanic, Latino needs throughout the county. For temporarily, they may assist with some staffing needs at Rincon. But again, that picture has all changed with the passage of Measure Y. So, but their primary responsibility will be to Roseland, and anything else would be only as, time would allow. But it is a full-time position, yes.
Okay.
And also requires Spanish bilingual skills.
And I think we have other questions from the commission here, but I wanted to make sure that Tim May had a chance to weigh in if he wanted to.
My question was answered.
His question was answered, he said.
Okay, all right. And did I see somebody else on this side? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Garcia.
I appreciate all the thoughtfulness of recruiting from within Roseland for Roseland. I would also say to you that we should be recruiting in Roseland for the entire library system. And also, the Spanish speaking is very important. And I've had discussions with the director and with Patrick about this position. And it sounds to me like it's pretty much devoted to the Roseland. So that person, no matter what their title, is the go-to person for the library, the first thing. And I would say that if the problem is the 4-year degree as opposed to the master's degree, that you would find that there's many people out there with master's degrees who could fit this position. I will hold you to, when there's restaffing, I know Patrick will be retired, that we will include a library manager that is specifically for Roseland for the second position that comes through. And I understand both the politics and the outreach of trying to get somebody from within Roseland. But I would say to you all once again that we should be looking at the population of Roseland for all positions in the library, not just Roseland. And that there's probably 4 master degree librarians out there. I understand the expediency of getting this out there because of Measure Y and because of the audience. And that's all you will hear from me.
Thank you.
Comments? Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do have a question. Funding, I guess, is no longer an issue, right?
Correct.
For this. So we don't need to worry about that. But could I get the dates again? So Roseland currently is a temporary library in a temporary space. We have never made a decision as a commission to build, lease, whatever we would do, a permanent Roseland library, correct?
That's correct.
And then what would the date be for this temporary Roseland library to come to a close while the county builds a building that could possibly include a library?
I don't look at the FTE as temporary. Part of that is because I am confident that we will be offered a building and that this person would stay on that staff. Certainly, if that doesn't happen, we should know that, I would think, within a year. And then we will be doing so much hiring over the next couple of years that this person could be transferred to another location to allow us to bring all these additional hours on board. But either way, I'd want to keep the FTE, and I think we could certainly put the person to work.
And I guess, I'm sorry, I'll just finish up here, and maybe this is a question for Keo. So we're going to be opening Mondays. System-wide, do we need a librarian, or which position do we need more, I guess, is my question. Do we need a librarian, or do we need a senior staff specialist across the system? Maybe you can't answer that. Maybe we could just need them both. But like I said, because there is going to come a time when Roseland isn't going to be there at all, temporarily, correct?
No, I mean, I've asked about that we just met with the developer and the Community Development Commission last week, and I asked that question. I said, if the library didn't want any downtime between now and the new facility being built, does there need to be downtime? And they said no, they're committed to, if it means giving us a second temporary facility that's a manufactured home. They will have to tear down that old furniture store, but they said that they're committed to keeping us on site up until the day that a new facility opens. I think the answer for Kia, the other question you asked, is I would think in that staffing ramp up that Ken and Kia shared, there's both librarians and senior library specialists in that mix.
Correct.
I don't want to belabor this, but even if something happened and there wasn't a Roseland library, we don't have enough bilingual staff anyway, and this individual I would think would just be absorbed within Cloverdale or where there's other needs for that. I don't think that's an issue. I think having more bilingual staff is important for the entire library system.
All right, seeing no more comments from the commission, I'd like to offer the public an opportunity to weigh in on this. All right, so now we will move on. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 11.6, branch manager presentation. And this is the Windsor branch manager. Welcome.
Thank you.
You probably need that lifted up, huh?
How does this work? Is there a button? Right there. Ooh, wow.
I just want to say that I think Bill did a great job on Saturday as the MC of his event. I was really impressed with how well he did with the way that he expressed enthusiasm and introduced me and the mayor and herded cats with all the kids with drums and all that. But you did a nice job, Bill.
Thank you very much. You can see right here we have our 20 years and counting library logo, designed by Catherine Greco, and I want to thank Brett for coming and speaking at our celebration on Saturday. It was really fun, and Commissioner Neff. Here is a picture of the outside of the Windsor Library, and the cool thing about it is for many years, the sign that says Windsor Regional Library was not on the building. So in the last year, the town of Windsor has put on the label of the library. We have a sign now. People know what the building is on the building. We had a sign on the side that said Windsor Regional Library, but I kept going outside and taking pictures of it over and over and over again. So that's one of the pictures that I went out and took. The next slide, there we are. Come on into the library. You can see inside to our lobby and into the main library. Our library is a civic center. It's right on the town green. When they had, the town council had they're rethinking their whole civic center master plan, and they had hearings on that at the city council chambers, and resident after resident talked about how important the library was to them and how important it was to have it on the town green. So that was heartening to have so many people talk about how much they love the library and where it is. We get about 10,000 visitors a month, some less, sometimes more. About 13,108 library card holders do live in our zip code, 95492, which is the Windsor zip code, and that is about half the population of Windsor. So about half the population have library cards. There's just a picture of the inside of the library. We've got a study group that comes every Saturday, I think from the Santa Rosa Junior College. A group of folks, they gather, and they seem to be Spanish speaking, and they sit in the corner, and they have a study group. You can see one of our teen volunteers did a cool thing on one of our bulletin boards. There is our reference desk on the bottom left with our 20th anniversary celebration sign on the reference desk. And you can see back, that's one side of the library, and then you turn around, and that's the other side of the library. So we're a pretty small branch. Right here is some of the teen area with the magazines. So we're a pretty small branch. You can turn around and see everything all at once. We're lucky we have windows because it used to be the Water District Board building. And then they were, 20 years ago, they turned it into the Windsor Library. So we have windows, but we can't put shelving on the side. So we're impacted with a lot of where we can put our books. The next slide shows our friendly staff, some of our friendly staff and volunteers. Librarian Linda Burton White did not want to have her picture taken, but she is awesome. We have a library specialist. There's Jenny Fernandez, who does work sometime at Roseland. So she's out of our building sometimes and over at Roseland. And there's Tiffany and I being superheroes for the summer reading program. Last year, the year before, and then there's Tiffany and one of our other volunteers, Elise Hay, who is also on our library advisory board. And then down in the bottom right, you can see Lisa Siegler, and also one of our library specialists. So we have a staff, and then not pictured is our library aide. We have a 30-hour library aide, Donna Skornavaca. And so we have, I manage 6 employees. I have one employee, Janet Scholler, retired last month. So we've been filling in with subs, and we're looking for a new library specialist. The next slide will show you when you come into the lobby, you see here's our refreshed library book cart. There's Dee Grainer, one of our longtime volunteers. I always say Dee needs like a cot in the library because she's also a part-time, she's a library sub, and then she volunteers, she runs that book cart area. She has a whole pool of volunteers that work hard to keep that book cart running. We don't have book sales periodically. We have an ongoing book sale area right there in the corner of our lobby. So Dee Grainer herds the cats, all her volunteers, and there's always somebody there refreshing the book cart and stocking it up, and I just appreciate it. And she is shown with our teen book cart volunteer, Isabella Lacefield. So it's pretty cool to have a teen in there working with the friends on the book cart. And, I didn't mention that the book cart generates about $20,000 a year, more or less. And some of that money goes to, in the next slide, we'll go to programs. Here's some of our programs. The Friends Are Proud. Up in the upper right, you can see Scott Gifford, our ukulele guy. I think he's been to all the branches. Have you all met Scott, the ukulele man? He was so exciting. He is like the greatest thing we've had at Windsor. We've had first we had a teen ukulele program. And then all the adults said they wanted a ukulele program. So we had a ukulele program with adults and especially seniors. And then after that, then we had a family ukulele program. And now we're hiring him to do classes. So ukuleles have invaded Windsor for whatever reason. But Windsor is going to be the land of ukuleles. All these people are going to be out in the town green strumming along. And then you can see, I love that at the beginning of this year, we had the Chinese lion dancers come in and celebrating the New Year, the Lunar New Year. And then down at the bottom was one of my other favorite programs. We had Draw Your Own Frida Kahlo with the Raises Collective. So they came in, and there's I think that's the director, Isabel Lopez, I'm not sure, but she's dressed up like Frida, and everybody went and made their own version of Frida Kahlo, so that was really cool. We did that, I think that was back in March. So moving on to more programs. One of our most popular programs is Story Time, and there's our Halloween Story Time. All the kids dressed up in their Halloween costumes. And then on the left, you can see one of our Bibliobop dance parties. Our children's librarian, Tiffany Bronson, loves doing these, and she just plays music. She reads a book, plays a song, the kids dance, and then they listen to music, and then they get up and they boogie again. So you've got to come for one of those. Those are pretty cool. And moving right along, there's one of the other Tiffany's big projects is the Play and Learn Island. She helped with one of our other librarians get a grant to get this Play and Learn Island, and it is noisy and it is a little crazy, and we had to right there. It's in the form of you see the kids on the playing with it. It's in the form of a general store, and the kids are playing store with it, and you can move it around. I think you've seen it in your branches, and you can modify it. And right now, for our 20th anniversary, we dug children's prizes in it. We took away everything, put in seed corn or feed corn in it, and the kids, as a thing for kids to dig in, and they dug in and they pulled out various prizes we had left over from the children's summer reading. So that was fun. That was their little souvenir. But it generates a lot of noise. Windsor Library is small. We have some conflicts between the kids and the adults, but we just, Windsor, from what I understand, has the highest per capita population of people under 18 in Sonoma County. So we get a lot of families and we get a lot of kids, and they use our library. Half the library is devoted to kids' materials. So The kids have a lot of fun there. Moving right along to another kids program, there's Read to a Dog. On the left up there, you can see my son Austin is reading to Hunter, one of our reading dogs who has since retired. And there's another volunteer, Sheila, and her dog Bindi. And there's more kids reading to Hunter, but every Thursday at 3:30, kids come in and read to the dog, so we love doing that. And then the next slide here we're reaching out into the community. There is on some Windsor Library kids decorating the Charlie Brown Christmas tree on the Windsor Town Green. We're getting ready to do that all over again. For our 20th anniversary, we decided to ask the community families to each make an ornament of what 20 years of the library means to them. And so they will make the ornaments, bring them back to us, and we will hang them on our tree. And that is sponsored by the Friends of the Library. And there, it looks like story time, but it's Head Start. We have that one of our Head Start graduations that many of the branches hold. And there is our Head Start graduation, and that's a big deal. We do that in May. And all the parents and the kids come, and they graduate, and they get bags, and we read libraries. We read stories to them. And there's Tiffany out at the Earth Day, the Windsor Earth Day Festival on the Town Green. There she is with the Play and Learn Island and some of our outreach materials. And there I am up there because the Windsor Business Expo, that's another one of our big outreach events. And we reach out into the Windsor business community. So we are trying as much as possible to do outreach. We're working with the town Parks and Recreation Department, working with them to do outreach into the parks, to have, and we're working on that right now, figuring out what that all means. Having library staff be present in the parks along with city staff, the town staff, when they do outreach, when the recreation department brings their outreach van, we'll have some library component to that. So we're working on that right now. The next slide shows you one of Commissioner Neff's favorite programs, the Legos. And there we all are. They're all the children with their Legos. That was something when our children's librarian presented that to me a few years ago. I was like, really? Playing with Legos in the library? But it's huge. Kids love this. So more and more what's happening, I did an interview with the Windsor Times on Saturday, and I said more and more what's happening, more and more STEM things are happening in the library. Technology, thinking, science, all those kind of components and programs are coming into the library and are going to continue to do that. So that is an example of some of that. And the final slide, or next to final slide, is our homework help program that we're very proud of. Our lab pushed to get a homework help program. And we got one, and it's in all the branches of the library, of the Sonoma County Library now. And we're very proud of Windsor. We get about 12 to 16 students a week. Sometimes we get a lot, and sometimes we get less. But we have 5 or 6 volunteers who are there on Tuesdays at 3:30. My wife is one of them, Robin Coolidge. She helps coordinate the program. And there's one of our volunteers, Joanne McMichael, working with the child. And we help. They come and they get their homework done. And it's pretty cool. And everybody likes it. The volunteers get a good feeling out of it. The community likes it. It builds in community awareness of the library. It's really neat. So those are just some of the things going on at the Windsor Library. There's a quiet shot. It seems very quiet. You don't know how much activity is going on in that building. But it seems like there's something always going on. So thank you very much, and that concludes my presentation on the Windsor Library. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I see Commissioner McKenzie. Yes, thank you very much.
I really appreciate, this is fantastic. I love all your pictures and all your energy and all the things you're doing. I appreciated you took me on I did a tour with you, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, and can't believe all the stuff that's jammed in this little tiny space. It's really impressive. I thank you for coming down and staying late and everything tonight. My specific question is, as somebody personally who would probably be really bugged by the children's island if I was in there trying to read, do you put any restrictions on the hours of that?
We haven't. We have it out there, and the kids are playing with it, and we don't do restrictions on it. It's kind of hard. There's a lid, I guess, you can put on it sometimes, but it really has to be taken apart. So when it's there, it's kind of there.
Is it in the middle of the library? Is out there kind of in the hallway? Where is it actually?
It's actually in the corner of the children's area.
It is.
We took out a reading table or a puzzle table that we had.
Okay.
And we put that in there instead.
Right.
So it is noisy, and it's something we're working on.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you. It's terrific.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did you, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Neff. No, come on. All right, so thank you very much, and now we will move on to item 12, action items by motion. We have item 12.1, Sonoma County Library 2017 partial library closures, January through April holiday schedule. And Patrick is going to be talking to us about this.
So nothing really new here. We've discussed this interim schedule previously. We brought it before the commission, just covering the months January through April, and that was because prior to the election, we just didn't know what our staffing situation would look like. And so the commission opted to just do a January through April schedule. So that's what this represents. Again, no changes since we presented it last month. All we're looking for today is approval of the schedule. We will be coming back later to discuss the calendar for May 2017 through December 2017, given the approval of Measure Y and what that impact that may have on staffing, as well as our ability to be open, more days. So again, we're just seeking your approval, final approval for the January through April, and then we'll be coming back at a later date to make a recommendation for May through December.
Okay. Any clarifying questions from the commission? Commissioner McKenzie?
Just quickly, in light of Mr. Sutley's presentation earlier today, the public comments, Easter Sunday is a religious holiday, isn't it? I mean, it's a state holiday? Easter Sunday?
So currently in the MOU, it stipulates that we're closed on Easter Sunday.
Okay, no other questions from the commission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. Did you have a question?
He's falling asleep.
Just that?
No.
It's only 7:30.
Sorry, had my time. So.
Those are those.
Commissioner May, I couldn't tell if you had a question or not.
I don't have a question.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a motion?
Somebody motion. I second.
Oh, okay. Good
I
motion.
second.
Made a motion.
Made by Commissioner
Second.
Garcia and seconded by Commissioner Heavenridge. Any comment from the public? All right, I'll ask for a vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, carries unanimously. One absence, of course. All right, moving on to action item by resolution, item 13, approve resolution on unrepresented employee salary and benefits for 2018. Do I have a motion? No.
I move that we do not accept this resolution as written.
I second.
All right, so we have Commissioner Ebright making a motion not to accept the resolution, and Commissioner Garcia seconding that. And with that motion to not accept this resolution, I'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that was unanimous also. So that, I'm sorry, Commissioner
Should
Hauser.
we put on the record that we have an expectation of staff reviewing it and making modifications and coming back to us with a changed proposal?
Yes, thank you very much. So you've got that for the minutes, that we have asked staff to review that and return with another motion. All right, so on to item number 14, lab appointments, and I don't see that we have any lab appointments today to fill. And what items should we include in the commission notes? A big thank you to Sonoma County for passing Measure Y, with kudos to all who worked to make that possible. Any other items for the commission notes?
Ken's presentation on the spending of the Measure Y money.
Okay, could there be a brief summary of the spending plan for Measure Y? And
is it too soon to comment on the presentation of the facility master plan? That was very informative.
I think that it would be good to say that that is in progress and that the commission will see a final draft in January at the meeting. A comment on the presentation on Windsor Library would be nice.
Should we put the closure calendar in this? Would that be important?
Yeah, I think that would be important to put the closure calendar through April in. All right, well that should keep you busy, Jane. All right, so agenda items for the next commission meeting, thoughts on that? All right, seeing no thoughts. We'll work on that. And our next meeting will be December 5th, which is coming right up at 6:30 here. And I will now adjourn our meeting. Thank you very much. It is 9:35.